So my name's Shane.
So I'm here with Shane today. We're kind of going over his collection. We're gonna talk about like what he does in order to afford these cool vehicles that he's got. Because a lot of times you don't see people who are driving an Audi, a muscle car, and an old square body truck. So we're gonna just basically right now we're gonna talk about the Audi. So kind of tell us about the car.
Yeah, so my name's Shane. I often get asked online like what I do to afford this stuff. And usually my go-to response is part-time burger flipper at Hardee's.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I actually work at an engineering firm. I've been doing engineering design work for about 20 years now.
Okay.
So, yep. And just started out in the Honda world and have worked my way up with time. Buy something, hold on to it for a while, and then just, wash, rinse, repeat. So this is a 2019 Audi RS3. I have had this since 2021, I guess. And this is my daily driver. So I bought it with about 10,000 miles on it. Right now it has about 35,000 miles on it. I flew to DC and drove it home, and that was a nice, fun ride home on E85. So the car does have a few mods to it. It's a stage 3 car, so it has a TTE 700 hybrid turbo setup. So you pop the hood and you look at the turbo, you can't really see much of a difference except for the TTE tag,
Right.
But it's all tucked back in there anyway. So basically they just take the factory turbos and they just mill them out, put different impellers in them, etc. So
Gotcha.
from the factory, these were rated at, I believe, like 398 horsepower at the crank. And this setup as it sits on E85 is pushing about 650 wheel.
Dang,
So
that's sick.
the limiting factor on these cars is the stock blocks. The rods have a tendency to bend and put windows in the blocks. So
Gotcha.
it's tuned by Unitronic, and they do their best to try to keep it safe. They try to limit it to about 400 or about 500 wheel torque, 525 wheel torque, somewhere in there. So
Sick.
the turbo's not maxed out by any means, but I mean, it runs good for what it is.
So you're running on like pure E85 right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It is flex fuel at this point. I did the flex fuel conversion on it about a year ago.
Gotcha.
So I can run anything between 93 and 85, but my first tank that I put in there of 93, it just neutered the car. So I'm like, I'm not even going to do this anymore.
Right.
So, I typically just fill up at Come and Go, and it's usually E67, E68.
Gotcha.
So,
Tell us just about the Corvette. What's done to your Corvette?
yeah. So I bought the Corvette in 2017, and I bought it from the original owner, who was a doctor, I believe, if I remember right.
Gotcha.
And I think it was like a midlife crisis car that I bought several years too early. But those Corvettes, they have the LS7 in them, and they're known for dropping valves. So when I bought the car, it was still under warranty.
Right.
And as soon as the warranty was up, I pulled it apart and did a heads cam swap on it. I wanted to just do a mild cam and keep it, somewhat streetable, daily drivable if I wanted to.
Yeah.
As times went on, I've went through and I've done headers on it and an exhaust and intake manifold, etc. And it makes probably about 550, 580 at the wheel, somewhere in that range. So it's a nice, fun car.
Yeah, of course.
But it just lives on the lift.
Right?
Yeah.
And then your truck, is there anything fancy with your truck? I mean, it's super clean for its age. So
Just an old farm truck.
old farm truck.
So it's a 87 Chevy Silverado, and it's an R10, not a C10. In 87, that was the first year they did fuel injection.
Gotcha.
So it's a fuel injected setup on it. It has AccuAir and Ridetech Air Ride suspension on it, 6.0 LS swap.
Okay.
I did a cam setup on it last year with the stall and just been chasing around problems.
Well, cool.
I've had it for about 3 years as well.
Yeah. So what was the MSRP on this car in 2019?
I believe it was about 63,
Okay.
somewhere close to that.
So with the Audi, the Corvette, and the square body, what is the net worth of your garage?
It depends on who you ask on those vehicles. The square bodies have blown up quite a bit recently, and as that truck sits, it would probably get 40 or so,
Okay.
I would say. And the Corvette, it's going to be one of those Corvette guys and, you know, it's one of two built on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
It is a pretty rare car, but it just would depend on what somebody wanted.
Right.
I mean, my value would be different than your value, etc.
Yeah.
So probably somewhere between 50 and, you know, 75 on that thing.
Right.
Just depending upon the day and who wanted it.
Yeah.
So
we're going to hop in the car and we're going to kind of talk about like how you are able to afford $100,000 to $150,000 worth of cars, and we'll just kind of talk and we'll cruise around the Audi and see how it pulls and just see what happens.
sounds good.
Cool. Talk about like what he does for a living. So Shane, like you told us you're an engineer. What specifically are you kind of doing as an engineer, I guess?
Yeah, so I'm not actually a degreed engineer. I just work at an engineering firm. So I started out doing machine design, equipment design, etc. in the early 2000s, and I've just been in that field ever since, just working my way up.
So how did you get into engineering then if you didn't get a degree in it, is what I'm really curious about.
Gotcha. So at a young age, I always enjoyed like taking things apart, trying to put them back together. And I started getting into modifying vehicles, not necessarily modifying vehicles, buying, you know, crappy vehicles and having to repair them myself to keep them running. So,
right.
You know, it came out of necessity because you couldn't afford to pay mechanics and stuff like that. And I just always liked, you know, at a young age doing stuff like that. I was also kind of drawn towards like drawing and things of that nature. And initially I wanted to be an architect, but then I realized how much schooling was involved and how expensive that schooling was. So I kind of shied away from that.
Right.
And I ended up just going to a local technical school called OTC, and I have associates in drafting and design technology.
Okay, sick.
So I spent a lot of years working for an OEM equipment manufacturer, just building, you know, or not designing equipment, I should say. So.
Gotcha. So like, something I would ask, because it sounds pretty cool, like you didn't have a degree, I mean, you kind of have a degree, but like, I guess it's not like an engineering degree, but it's what you do essentially, right?
Yeah, I work with a bunch of degreed engineers.
Okay.
And I work for them and with them.
Okay, I gotcha.
So we do a lot of the same stuff, but of course with me not being a degreed engineer, I can't sign things, I can't stamp things.
Right. So kind of like, for people who are kind of my age, maybe their early 20s or teens, what would kind of be like your suggestion, like to start thinking about like how do you make the money to like afford 3 badass cars, I guess?
If I was your age and I could do it over again, I would probably invest a little bit more in the stock market, think more about long-term stuff.
Right.
But really just like small good decisions over time compound, as you can see. You don't necessarily have to make a lot of money. You just have to make good decisions, and you have to, you know, be smart and take care of your things.
Right.
So like the vehicles that I've had for several years, you know, some of them are paid off. That makes it a little bit easier as well.
So kind of tell us like about the drive modes of like your RS3.
Yeah, so there's several different settings for it. There's some predefined settings, driving modes, etc. So right now I have it in an individual drive mode. So it's pretty quiet in here. The exhaust valves are closed on it. You have adjustment over the suspension, engine sound, transmission shifting, etc. So on the interface up here, if I jump into the individual mode, you can see this is what you have control over.
Okay.
If you set everything to dynamic, it's like their race mode. So if I do this, the exhaust valves open up, the transmission tuning gets a little bit more aggressive in it. You can see it downshifted on its own to hold the gears a little bit longer. So once traffic thins out up here a little bit, I'll downshift and go. What's awesome about the dual clutch and the paddle shifters is like this stuff's pretty responsive. Like when I downshift, it actually downshifts, and when I upshift, it upshifts pretty quick.
Right. Oh my God.
And it just keeps pulling. It gets full boost in third gear and just goes.
Jeez,
no drama.
That's wild. That hooks up.
Yeah, it just goes. Launching's crazy too.
Jeez, dude. All-wheel drives go crazy.
Yep. So the downfall is in first gear, you have like a 50-50 chance of this thing hooking or just freaking out.
Right.
So like if you're going from a slow roll, if it senses too much tire spin, it'll just cut power. Just fall on its face and cut power. With how warm it is today, we might be okay. I'll try it here.
The braking goes crazy too. Oh my gosh, bro.
Yeah, and it's nice because then you just go back into individual drive mode and it quiets down and it's just a normal car.
Jeez.
It's like the ultimate daily.
The ultimate daily. The OEM RS3.
Yep, OEM.
Dude, that's crazy.
And the factory launch control is pretty good on it as well.
Yeah.
The suspension's not too stiff or anything. And
right.
It has adaptive cruise, blind spot assist, lane keep assist, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Stereo's decent in it. We can launch it right here if you're good with it.
I'm down with that.
So we'll do the traction control off.
All right, this is going to be the dig in his RS3, and I have a feeling I'm going to pucker my butthole.
Okay, so this is just factory launch control.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
So it does pretty good.
That's pretty good. It does the job.
Yeah, it gets the job done. Sorry, I locked you out.
Bro. Dude, that's so wild.
It moves.
It goes. I love the sound of that 5-cylinder, bro. It sounds so good.
Yeah, all the turbo noises. And it has just enough pop, right? Not too much pop.
Yeah. Dude, so what kind of got you like into the Audi platform, I guess, since you're kind of a big muscle guy too?
Lost it again. So I guess what I really started out on was Hondas.
Okay.
B-Series Hondas, turbo Hondas, stuff like that back in the early 2000s. And I had a 99 Civic Si that I was daily driving for a long time while I had the GTO. And the market on the old Hondas started really blowing up. So I had bought this Civic in 2012, the Civic Si in 2012, and I paid like $4,800 for it. And right after COVID, I sold it for like 13 grand.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So it was literally a daily driver. I put some money into it along the way. I just kept it really clean.
Right.
But I wanted just to try something different. And I was a big fan of like the Evos and the STIs back in the early 2000s. And those aren't really attainable right now either. And I just wanted to get something a little bit more modern with some creature comfort. So
yeah,
I ended up getting an S3 at the time. And then it was the same color. It was a 2017. When I bought it, I like almost instantly regretted it, wishing I would have gotten an RS3. So less than a year later, I ended up just buying an RS3.
Yeah.
Because it's only money, right?
Right. It's only money.
It's only money. And the banks will give you more money as long as you pay them. So
I'm going to put that in as tip of the day.
the banks will give you more money.
Well, that's cool. And so you just like turbo all-wheel drive cars. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I like a lot. I respect a lot. You can see I have an old farm truck in the garage and a Corvette in the garage.
Right.
They all have kind of their different place, you know?
Yeah.
But this is a blast. I just don't know if something ever really goes wrong with it, how I will feel about it at that time. Because
Yeah.
they're expensive. The cost of doing business is expensive here.
Right.
Something silly like I change the spark plugs once a year because it's on E85, And 5 spark plugs for this is like $260 just for spark plugs.
Jeez.
Just because, why not, right?
Yep. Pay to play.
Yeah.
So if you had to give like someone watching this any advice in order to have like a cool RS3 or a Corvette or whatever they're looking to get right now, what would be like your one thing you would say to them?
The one thing would probably be...
Hold on, I gotta cut you off. One thing I would say, old man on a moped.
Oh,
If you
are you going to show the old man?
Yeah.
That'd be epic.
Yeah.
Pan over to it. All right, go ahead.
So if you had to tell someone who wanted an RS3 or a Corvette or whatever the dream car is, but they don't feel like they can do it, what would you suggest? Like, what would be your one thing you would tell someone to do if they were trying to get their dream car?
I think the one thing, and probably the most important thing, is just have a good credit score, pay your bills on time, work yourself up to it, because chances are you're not just going to pay cash for these things. You're going to be financing them, and sometimes it's hard to finance things if you don't have credit to do so.
Right.
So.
Well, cool. I think that was a good ride. First time in an RS3, wasn't disappointed. So it hooked up good, and you've got all the cool cars, and I think you're kind of a good motivation for a lot of people who are trying to like have this kind of setup, this like man cave setup with cool vehicles and stuff.
Yep.
So it was cool.
I think probably the second piece of advice is learn to do your own stuff, because it costs a lot of money to have other people build your things. So
Yeah, I agree.
once you get a collection of tools and you get some know-how, I mean, you can YouTube anything,
Right.
and figure stuff out. So
Yeah. Well, cool. It was a good. The GoPro overheated twice, so we'll see if we can get that figured out for my next video. But I appreciate you taking me out and talking to me.
Absolutely.
It was a fun time. So
Yep.
cool. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, sounds good.